Now, Tim Karr of FreePress.net has been on my show more than anybody here because he's my go-to guy on net neutrality. And if this medium is to continue, the internet must remain neutral. I guess that's what net neutrality means. That's not all Tim works on. When we're seeing all the, what's going on at Occupy Wall Street and the various Occupy movements around the country, at the beginning it was all, people screaming, where's the mainstream media coverage, or the corporate media coverage, and it wasn't there. The reason they started paying attention is because in this internet day and age, we're all the media. I see Kim Doyle-Lurie, who I know from her work is for the 99ers, and she's one of the people that inspired me to start a website, helpthe99ers.com, which is a whole other issue, but 99ers important issue, and another issue that you don't hear about in the corporate media. But anyway, back to net neutrality. I go to Tim all the time, but you want to talk a bit about access to the media, which is something that we...
I mean, it's all related, and I think one of the things that we often forget is that the media system that we have didn't emerge naturally as a sort of the invisible hand of the free market guiding it along. It's the result of media policies that are rooted all the way back to our founding fathers. And they were rooted on these two principles. The first principle, I think most people understand, the principle of openness. The First Amendment guarantees that no one can shut down our right to speak freely. And it's what Thomas Jefferson said, if I can remember, said, if I were to choose between a government with no newspapers or newspapers with no government, I would most surely choose the latter. And what people don't realize is that he actually wrote a second sentence after that. And this gets us to the second pillar, the second principle of media policy. He said, but I should mean that every man and woman, I'm editorializing there, should receive those papers and be capable of reading them. And that gets us to the second principle, which is also rooted in our founding fathers, the principle of access. At that time, they created a postal subsidy system that subsidized newspapers, subsidized pamphleteers, so it was very easy for them to get their information out to people. And if you fast forward to the 20th century, the way policy governs the airwaves is around this idea. Originally, this was the original intention. Those of us who know about Clear Channel and others see that it's not quite worked, but that it was around this idea of diversity of access, localism of the airwaves, competition, choices on the airwaves. And our telecommunications system as well is heavily regulated. But what's happened in the last 40 to 50 years is that a very powerful cabal of media companies, News Corp, Clear Channel, Viacom, and others have taken that principle of access and stripped it away from us. And so right now, we are in the fight of our lives. And the work that I do at Free Press is really to make sure that Nicole and Tom and Cliff and Sam and thousands of others have access to the media so that we can continue to communicate and continue to foster our democracy as our founding fathers intended. And so there are a lot of issues going on. There are a lot of opportunities for us. And if we're going to occupy Wall Street, we also need to occupy the internet. If we're going to take back the media, we also need to reclaim the airwaves. The good news is that there are some opportunities there. Nicole mentioned the fight for net neutrality, something I've been involved with for 6 years. Net neutrality, I agree, not a great term, is basically this idea that we have control over our internet experience. The engineers who created the internet use this engineering principle, which basically said anybody who gets on the network can connect to anyone else on the network. It was an engineering principle. Little did they know that some 30 to 40 years later, it would be this powerful force for organizing in the Middle East, across North Africa, and Wall Street, elsewhere. And that's what we're fighting to preserve. But there are also other issues with the airwaves. We just won a recent battle. I don't know if people have heard of the Local Community Radio Act, Free Press working with Prometheus, who has someone here, Prometheus Radio Project, working for 10 years, fighting against the National Association of Broadcasters and others. We managed to open up more of the spectrum so that potentially thousands of what are called low-power radio stations, very small broadcast footprint radio stations can now get licensed to the airwaves and open those up. So we can talk more about net neutrality later on, I'd be happy to do that. But essentially, my point is that if we are to win this fight, if we are to gain access for more people to prosper via the airwaves, via the internet, we need to get involved in the policy fight. And it's not just about protecting openness and free speech, that is important, but it's also about protecting our access to information, which is a fundamental right rooted in the founding documents of this country.